Dr. Emily Parker stifled a yawn as she studied the anomalous readings on her monitor for the third time that night. The Deep Space Monitoring Station at NASA's Goldstone complex had been picking up irregular patterns for the past week, but tonight was different. The signals were stronger, more deliberate. "Hey Mike, can you take a look at this?" She called out to her colleague, Dr. Michael Torres, who was dozing in his chair at the next console. "These energy signatures don't match anything in our database." Mike wheeled his chair over, his eyes still heavy with sleep. As he studied the screen, however, his drowsiness vanished. "That's not random space noise," he said, leaning forward. "That's a pattern." Emily nodded, her heart racing. "Look at the regularity of these pulses. Whatever's causing this is moving in a search grid pattern." She pulled up a 3D map of the solar system, where dozens of similar energy signatures were now visible, moving with perfect precision through the space between Mars and Jupiter. "We need to alert command," Mike said, already reaching for the secure phone line. But Emily grabbed his wrist, stopping him. "Wait," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Look at this." She typed rapidly, pulling up historical data from the past month. "These signatures, they've been getting closer. Methodically. Like they're surveying us." Mike finished her thought, his face pale in the blue light of the monitor. The room fell silent except for the gentle hum of computers. Both scientists watched as new data points appeared on their screens, each one closer to Earth than the last. Emily's fingers flew across her keyboard, running analysis after analysis. Their movement patterns suggest advanced propulsion systems, far beyond anything we've developed. And look at these energy readings. They're actively scanning everything in their path. "Command will never believe this without solid proof," Mike said, running his hands through his graying hair. As if in answer to his doubt, every monitor in the room suddenly lit up with alerts. Emily's coffee cup vibrated off her desk, shattering on the floor, but neither scientist noticed. They were transfixed by what their instruments were showing. 3 of the unknown objects had just decloaked in high Earth orbit. "They're taking atmospheric samples," Emily breathed, watching the data stream in. "Surface scans, electromagnetic field analysis, biodiversity assessments. They're not just looking at us, they're studying us. Like we're their science project," Mike said grimly. The next 4 hours were a blur of activity. Military officials arrived, questions were asked, data was analyzed. But it was what Emily found in the alien transmission data that chilled her to the bone. "I've partially decoded their classification system," she announced to the room full of officers and scientists. "They've marked Earth as a Class D target." She paused, swallowing hard. "Based on the context, that's their lowest threat assessment. Their easiest category of conquest." General Richards, who had flown in from Pentagon, stepped forward. "How can you be sure?" Emily projected a series of decoded alien transmissions. "They're dismissive of our technology level, amused by our internal conflicts. They see us as primitive, divided, easy." She took a deep breath. "But they're missing something crucial." "And what's that, Doctor?" the general asked. "They don't understand what being human means," she said, her voice growing stronger. "They see our divisions as weakness, our technological gap as insurmountable. But they've never faced a species that thrives on challenge, that unites in the face of external threats." She pointed to the screen where the alien ships were still visible. "They think they're studying us, but they don't see who we really are." As if to punctuate her words, the alien ships vanished back into their cloaking fields, leaving Earth's skies clear once again. But everyone in that room knew this was just the beginning. The easy target was about to become their worst nightmare. Jack Mitchell wasn't supposed to be watching the Super Bowl halftime show. He should have been leading his guild's raid in stellar conquest, but his sister had insisted he join the family gathering. That's why he was staring at the TV screen, beer frozen halfway to his lips, when the broadcast cut out and the sky above the stadium turned black. "Those formations," he muttered, standing up so quickly he knocked over the bowl of chips. His family's complaints faded into background noise as he pulled out his phone, taking quick screenshots of the news coverage. "I've seen this before." The massive ships hovering above the stadium were arranging themselves in a pattern that made his heart race. As a former Marine and current gaming strategy consultant, he recognized it instantly. The exact same formation used in Level 47 of Stellar Conquest, known as the Dominion Gambit. His fingers flew across his phone screen, posting to the game's Discord server. "Emergency strategy meeting. This is not a drill. Turn on your TVs." Within minutes, as panic spread across the country, something else was spreading too. Recognition. Thousands of gamers around the world were seeing what Jack saw. The alien ships weren't just taking random positions. They were following combat formations that millions of people had been unknowingly practicing against for years. "Mom, I need to use your office," Jack said, already heading upstairs. Behind him, the president's emergency broadcast was starting, but he had more important calls to make. His guild's voice chat was chaos when he logged in. "Quiet," he commanded, his Marine training coming through. "Look at their positioning. It's not just the Dominion Gambit. They're running the entire standard combat protocol from the game." "Holy shit, he's right," came a voice he recognized as Sarah, their guild's top strategist. "They're setting up for a 3-point suppression strike, just like we practice every Thursday night." Jack's post comparing the alien formations to game screenshots was already going viral. As government websites crashed under the panic, gaming forums became impromptu war rooms. Strategies that had been theory-crafted for years were suddenly being shared as survival guides. His phone rang. A private number. "Mitchell," he answered. "Mr. Mitchell, this is General Richards. One of our analysts just showed me your viral post. We need you at the Pentagon now." 4 hours later, Jack stood in a room full of military brass, his game guild connected via video conference on the wall screens. The aliens had just broadcast their demand for surrender in every language on Earth. "They're using standard intimidation tactics." Sarah's voice came through the speakers. "We've seen this in every major update. They always start with a show of force." Then, the room shook as the first attacks began. 3-point suppression. "Just like we predicted," Jack said, his voice steady. "But here's what they don't know. We've been finding ways to counter this strategy for years." He pulled up a map on the main screen. "In the game, there's only one way to beat the Dominion Gambit. You don't fight it head-on. You break their formation with scattered resistance." The entire guild finished in unison. General Richards looked between Jack and the screen of gamers. "You're telling me our best defense against an alien invasion comes from a video game?" Jack shook his head. "No, sir. I'm telling you our best defense comes from millions of people who've spent years learning how to think like our enemy without realizing it." He pointed to the global chat feeds now scrolling across another screen, showing strategy discussions in dozens of languages. "They think we're just a primitive species that'll break under their first strike. They have no idea that we've been preparing for this fight every time we picked up a controller." The room shook again with another attack, but now there was a glimmer of hope in the air. The easiest target was about to show its hidden strength, one respawn at a time. Lieutenant Amanda Hayes never expected her raid leadership experience would save lives. Yet here she was, coordinating 30 resistance cells across Chicago using modified Discord servers and tactics she perfected in MMO dungeons. "Team 3, I need you to pull aggro at Michigan Avenue," she said into her headset, gaming terminology now mixed with military jargon. "Team 5, get ready for ad control when they respond." She watched through the drone feeds as civilian vehicles modified with salvaged alien tech executed a perfect distraction maneuver. On another screen, A TikTok compilation showed resistance fighters demonstrating how to spot weaknesses in Arxian battle armor. The video had gone viral in hours, with teenagers adding their own tips in dozens of languages. The aliens had no concept of social media. To them, it was just noise. "Lieutenant, you need to see this," called out Kevin Thompson, their 13-year-old drone expert. The kid had won 3 national drone racing championships before the invasion. Now he was their best scout. "I've got movement patterns you won't believe." Amanda moved to his station, where multiple drone feeds showed Arxian troops moving through downtown. Kevin had his gaming headset on, piloting their modified racing drone through impossible gaps between buildings. "Look at their patrol routes," he said, pulling up a 3D map he created using gaming software. "They're running set paths, just like NPCs in open-world games. Once you learn their patterns, they become predictable." Amanda finished, already seeing the possibilities. "How fast can you share this data?" Kevin grinned, his braces glinting in the blue light of the monitors. "Already did. Posted it on Reddit an hour ago. Resistance cells worldwide are using gaming AI pattern recognition to track their movements." The command center, which was actually a converted internet cafe, buzzed with activity. Gamers turned warriors coordinated with traditional military units, speaking a hybrid language of tactical terms and gaming slang that would have been incomprehensible a month ago. Amanda's phone lit up with a priority message. She opened it to find a new video going viral. Arxian troops being led into an ambush by kids playing Pokemon Go. The aliens had never considered that a mobile game could be used to track their cloak units. "Ma'am," called one of her communications officers, "you've got to see what's trending on Twitter." The hashtag alien speedrun was dominating global charts. Resistance fighters were competing to take down Arxian units in record time, sharing strategies and tips like they were gaming achievements. The psychological impact on the alien forces was devastating. Their defeats were being turned into entertainment. "Keep this going," Amanda ordered, a plan forming. "Every victory, every successful tactic. I want it viral. Make them famous." She pointed to their social media team, most of whom were former gaming streamers. "Show the world that these invaders aren't gods. They're just boss fights we haven't beaten yet." Kevin's drone feed suddenly lit up with activity. Multiple contacts. He called out, his hands flying over his custom controller. "They're trying a new formation." Amanda leaned forward, watching as the Arxian units moved in perfect mechanical precision. But now she could see what they couldn't. Their rigid adherence to programming made them vulnerable to the chaos of human innovation. "All teams, execute Operation Speedrun," she commanded, using their new battle protocols. "Kevin, you're our raid leader on this one. Show them why Earth kids are the real endgame bosses." As her teams moved into position, Amanda caught a glimpse of her reflection in the monitor. She was still wearing her old gaming guild shirt under her military jacket. Somehow, that felt right. The aliens had expected to face a primitive military force. Instead, they were fighting an enemy that had been training for this battle through every game, every stream, every digital competition. The easy target had just changed the rules of engagement. Mark Davidson hadn't slept in 36 hours, but he couldn't stop staring at his screen. The lines of alien code scrolling past were starting to make an impossible kind of sense. "This can't be right," he muttered, taking another sip of his cold coffee. "It's too familiar." His team at the hastily assembled Cyber Defense Center in Silicon Valley had been working nonstop to crack the Arxian communication protocols. The aliens had dismissed Earth's digital capabilities as primitive, never bothering to update their encryption. That was their first mistake. "Hey, Rachel," he called out to his lead network specialist. "Remember those ancient networking protocols we studied in computer history? The ones from the early internet days?" Rachel Wheeler rolled her chair over, her eyes red from lack of sleep. She looked at his screen. then sat up straight. "No way," she breathed. "They're using packet structures similar to early TCP/IP. "Not similar," Mark said, his exhaustion forgotten. "They're almost identical. These aliens, they developed their network architecture along the same lines we did, but they never had to deal with hackers, with chaos. They never had to evolve." The realization hit both of them at the same time. The Arxians' greatest strength, their perfect, hierarchical organization, was actually their greatest vulnerability. Mark grabbed his phone, dialing the direct line to Lieutenant Hayes' command center in Chicago. "Amanda, you're not going to believe this. Their entire communication network, it's like finding out an advanced civilization is still running Windows 95. In English, Mark." Amanda's voice crackled through the speaker. "They're overconfident. Their systems are advanced but rigid. No redundancy, no chaos tolerance. They never evolved to handle the kind of digital warfare Earth deals with every day." He could almost hear Amanda smile through the phone. "How fast can you get me a exploit?" Mark was already typing. "Better. I'm going to give you their entire command and control structure. But here's the beautiful part. We don't need to destroy it. We can do something much worse." Hours later, Mark stood before a joint military-civilian command board, explaining his discovery. Every Arxian unit is connected to their central network. They don't have our concept of air-gapped systems or independent operation. They think it's a strength. We're going to show them why it's not. He pulled up a visualization of the alien network architecture. "See these command nodes? They're like their officers, controlling every action of their subordinate units. Perfect order, perfect control. But," Rachel stepped forward, taking over, "but we don't need to shut them down. We're going to introduce something they've never encountered: controlled chaos." The room watched as they demonstrated their plan. Small changes to command protocols, tiny delays in response times, subtle contradictions in orders. Nothing big enough to trigger their security systems, but just enough to create doubt, confusion, and hesitation. "It's like a digital version of water torture," Mark explained. "Each drop is insignificant, but together." He trailed off as the first test results came in. On the main screen, they watched as an Arxian unit began to show signs of confusion, their perfect formation starting to waver. "How long until they adapt?" General Richards asked. Mark shook his head. "That's the beauty of it, sir. Their hierarchy means any changes to their systems have to go through their entire command structure. By the time they realize what's happening, we'll have already changed our attack pattern." Rachel was already coordinating with other tech teams worldwide, sharing their discovery through secure channels. Every hacker, every programmer, every kid who ever tried to mod a game. They're all getting this data. We're not just fighting their army. We're teaching the world how to break it. As reports started coming in of Arxian units falling into disarray, Mark finally allowed himself to smile. The aliens had expected to find a primitive digital civilization. Instead, they found one that had been hardened by decades of virtual warfare, where every coder was a potential warrior. The easy target had just become a digital minefield. Robert "Old Bob" Williams was elbow-deep in the engine of a Tesla when the EMP hit. He watched from his workshop as the city of Austin went dark, but unlike everyone else, he was smiling. The aliens had just made their biggest mistake yet. "Tommy," he called out to his grandson, who was already pulling out their pre-prepared toolkits. "Get the word out. It's time for Operation Retro." While the Arxians were celebrating their successful strike against Earth's technology, they missed the flurry of activity happening in garages and workshops across the city. Old Bob had been planning for this since the first signs of invasion, teaching anyone who would listen how to convert modern vehicles back to mechanical systems. "They think they've crippled us," he told the growing crowd in his workshop. "But they don't know that every classic car enthusiast, every shade tree mechanic, Every kid who ever took apart a lawnmower. We're their worst nightmare. Across town, Jessica Martinez was putting her anthropology degree to unexpected use. As water treatment plants failed, she was already organizing teams to implement ancient Aztec and Roman water filtration systems. Our ancestors figured this out thousands of years ago. She explained to her volunteers, "We haven't forgotten their knowledge. We've just been saving it." The Orcsians watched in confusion as their devastating EMP attack failed to produce the expected panic. Instead, communities were adapting with startling speed. Bicycle repair shops became transportation hubs. Amateur radio operators established new communication networks. Boy Scouts started teaching fire starting and navigation skills to their neighborhoods. "They don't get it," Old Bob said to Lieutenant Hayes over a hand-cranked radio. "Every time they try to send us back to the Stone Age, we show them why we never really left it behind." In his workshop, modern electric cars were being converted to mechanical systems using parts from junkyards and hardware stores. Solar panels were being rewired through mechanical inverters. High school science classes were teaching their communities how to make basic batteries from household materials. "Mr. Williams," a young voice called out. It was Kevin Thompson, the drone expert from Chicago. "We need your help with something big." The boy's idea was brilliant in its simplicity, using mechanical springs and wind-up mechanisms to power their reconnaissance drones. No electronics for the EMP to fry, just pure, simple engineering that would have made Leonardo da Vinci proud. Jessica's water filtration systems were spreading too, with communities learning to purify water using layers of sand, charcoal, and stone, technologies that had served humanity for millennia. Her social media posts about ancient survival techniques, cached on paper before the EMP, were being shared hand-to-hand like revolutionary pamphlets. The Orcsians' frustration was visible even through their emotionless facades. Their sensors showed minimal electronic activity, yet human resistance was stronger than ever. They had expected a technology-dependent species to crumble. Instead, they found one that remembered its roots. "You know what's really going to drive them crazy?" Old Bob asked his growing team of mechanics. "We're not just surviving. We're teaching each other. Every skill we remember, every old technology we revive, becomes part of our arsenal." He watched as a converted hybrid car rolled silently out of his workshop, its electric motor replaced with a simple steam engine. Next to it, a team of engineers was testing a mechanical computer made from bicycle parts and wooden gears, designed to help calculate artillery trajectories without electronics. "They think taking away our modern tech makes us weaker," Jessica said, standing in the doorway. "But they don't understand. Humans don't just adapt. We remember every generation's knowledge, every primitive solution. It's all still here." As night fell over the powerless city, fires burned in carefully managed community centers, where people gathered to share knowledge and skills that had been waiting generations for their moment to shine again. The easy target had just reminded the galaxy why humanity never throws away a working solution. Captain Michael Torres crouched behind a partially collapsed wall, his hand-modified rifle loaded with rounds that shouldn't exist. The weapon was a perfect example of what humanity had become. Alien technology merged with human ingenuity, enhanced by lessons learned in 100 different wars. "Remember what Grandpa Joe always said about fighting the cartel back in Colombia?" He whispered to his team. "Never fight them head-on. Make them come to you, then hit them where they least expect it." His squad was a mix of Special Forces operators and civilian specialists. They had something the Orcsians could never understand: generations of guerrilla warfare experience, passed down through family stories and historical records. "Team 2 in position," crackled Sarah's voice through their mechanical radio. The device, created by Old Bob's workshop, used spring-powered generators instead of electronics. "The college kids have the catapults ready." Michael allowed himself a small smile. The aliens' advanced shield technology was useless against their latest weapon. Medieval siege engines launching EMP devices cobbled together from salvaged alien tech. Sometimes the best solutions were the oldest ones. Team 3, status. He called softly into his radio. Parker team ready. Came the response from Alex, a former gymnastics coach. His group of urban athletes had become their most effective infiltration unit. The aliens' motion sensors were calibrated for standard military movement patterns. They couldn't track humans who treated city buildings like an obstacle course. Michael checked his watch. Another primitive technology the EMP couldn't touch. Mark, are you ready with the hack? Systems prepped. Mark Davidson's voice was clear despite the mechanical radio. Their network still hasn't adapted to our last attack. They're about to get a nasty surprise. The plan was beautiful in its complexity. Combine every advantage they'd discovered. The Orcsians' rigid battle formations would be their undoing. They never expected an enemy that could think in 3 dimensions, that could turn urban environments into weapons. Execute, Michael ordered. The battle unfolded like a deadly dance. As the alien patrol entered the kill zone, the first catapult launched its payload. The EMP burst caught them by surprise, their shields useless against the primitive delivery system. Before they could recover, Alex's Parker team was moving. They seemed to defy gravity, leaping between buildings and through windows, drawing the aliens' fire in patterns their targeting systems couldn't predict. Now, Mark, Michael called. The hack hit their systems like a tsunami. Random command protocols, contradictory orders, all designed to create maximum confusion. The alien formation began to break apart, their perfect unity becoming their greatest weakness. That's when Michael's team struck. They emerged from multiple directions, using hybrid weapons that combined alien energy tech with good old-fashioned ballistics. The rounds punched through the confused aliens' armor like it was paper. They're adapting. Sarah called out, starting to regroup. Perfect. Michael smiled. This was what they'd been waiting for. Old Bob, you're up. The ground rumbled as their secret weapon emerged. A fleet of modified vehicles, running on steam engines and mechanical systems. They roared into battle, immune to the aliens' electronic warfare. The Orcsians never saw it coming. Their tactics were based on fighting an enemy that relied on modern technology. Instead, they faced an opponent that could switch between centuries of warfare at will, blending ancient and modern in ways their rigid military doctrine couldn't counter. As the last alien unit fell, Michael keyed his radio. Command, this is Strike Team Alpha. Phase 1 complete. Moving to Phase 2. He looked at his team. Special Forces operators working alongside Parker athletes, engineers partnered with history professors, all of them fighting with whatever tools worked best, regardless of their origin or age. The easy target had just taught them a lesson in adaptive warfare. Sarah Collins never thought her career in stand-up comedy would help win a war. Yet here she was, leading Operation Mockingbird from a converted comedy club in New York City, teaching humanity's most powerful weapon, laughter in the face of fear. The thing about the Orcsians, she explained to her team of former comedians, social media influencers, and psychological warfare experts, is that they've never had to deal with being a meme. They don't understand what it means when an entire species decides to turn you into a joke. On the screens behind her, compilation videos were going viral. Orcsian troops slipping on banana peels, courtesy of some very brave pranksters, their perfect formations being disrupted by flash mobs, their intimidating speeches being remixed into dance videos. Lieutenant Hayes just sent us new footage, called out Ryan, their lead video editor. You're going to love this one. The team gathered around to watch as a squad of alien soldiers, confused by Mark's network hacks, marched in circles for 3 hours. Someone had already added yakety sax as background music. Perfect. Sarah grinned. Add it to the compilation. Make sure it goes out on all channels, especially the ones we know they're monitoring. Their psychological warfare campaign was unlike anything in military history. Instead of fear or intimidation, they were using humanity's greatest defense mechanism, the ability to find humor in anything. "Ma'am," called Jessica from her communication station, "we're getting reports from the front lines. The Arxian soldiers are showing signs of psychological stress. They can't handle being laughed at." This was what Sarah had been counting on. The Arxians, bred for perfect order and military precision, had no defense against becoming a global inside joke. Their every failure was being turned into entertainment, their attempts at intimidation transformed into comedy gold. "Push it further," she ordered. "Get the K-pop fans involved. Show them what real digital warfare looks like." Within hours, Arxian communication channels were flooded with fan cams set to peppy music, their serious military announcements being drowned out by an army of internet trolls armed with decades of meme-making experience. "They're trying to block our broadcasts," Ryan reported, trying not to laugh. "But they keep getting rickrolled instead." Sarah watched as their campaign spread globally. In every country, people were finding their own ways to mock the invaders. Japanese anime artists were creating cute, chibi versions of Arxian soldiers. Bollywood directors were producing musical numbers about their defeats. Brazilian carnival designers were creating costumes that parodied their battle armor. "This just in from old Bob's team," Jessica called out. "They've started playing ice cream truck music through mechanical speakers every time an alien patrol passes. The Arxians are actually running away from it now." The psychological impact was devastating. Arxian combat effectiveness dropped by 60% when they realized they were being recorded for potential meme content. Their soldiers, unable to process being transformed from fearsome warriors into comedy material, were experiencing mass confusion. "You know what's really getting to them?" Sarah asked her team. "It's not just the mockery, it's that we're having fun. They expected us to cower in fear. Instead, we're treating this like the greatest entertainment event in human history." Reports were coming in from around the world. Arxian units were refusing to leave their ships, traumatized by the possibility of becoming the next viral sensation. Their command structure was breaking down as officers found their authority undermined by being turned into dance challenge videos. "Should we feel bad about this?" one of the younger team members asked. Sarah shook her head, watching as another compilation of alien failures racked up millions of views. "They came here expecting to find primitive savages. Instead, they found out why you should never underestimate a species that turned cat videos into an art form." The easy target had just weaponized joy itself. The final battle for Earth didn't take place on a battlefield. It happened on Twitch. 16-year-old Emma Chen, winner of last year's International Gaming Championship, sat before her jury-rigged stream setup in the Pentagon's war room, about to make history. "Are you sure about this?" General Richards asked, looking between Emma and the massive screen showing live feeds of the remaining Arxian fleet in orbit. "Trust me," Emma said, adjusting her headset. "They need to understand exactly who they've been fighting." She nodded to Mark Davidson, who had managed to hack into the aliens' primary communication network one last time. The stream went live to every working screen on Earth, and more importantly, to every ship in the Arxian fleet. The title simply read, "Beating Alien Combat Sims on Hardcore Mode. Speedrun Challenge." Emma's fingers flew over her controls as she loaded up the Arxian Battle Simulator, the same program they used to train their troops. Mark's team had pulled it from their networks during their earlier hacks. What the aliens were about to learn was that their advanced combat training was child's play compared to what human gamers did for fun. "First run, no saves, no shield mods," Emma announced to her global audience. The view count was already in the billions, including very confused Arxian officers. "Let's show them how Earth does it." What followed was nothing short of art. Emma tore through the Arxians' most complex battle scenarios, like they were tutorial levels. Strategies that their military had developed over centuries were dismantled in minutes. She wasn't just winning. She was making it look easy. Notice how their elite guard always follows the same pattern, she commented, her voice carrying to every Arxian ship. Classic rookie mistake. Any speedrunner would spot that. In the war room, Dr. Emily Parker watched the alien communication channels light up with confused chatter. They're trying to process how a primitive species could possibly master their combat system so quickly. That's because they don't understand what they're really seeing. Lieutenant Hayes added, "This isn't just a game to us. This is how humanity learns, adapts, evolves." Emma was already starting her second run, this time using strategies developed by the global gaming community over the past months. "See, the thing about Earth gamers," she explained to her alien audience, "is that we don't just play to win. We play to break the game, to find every exploit, to master every system." The Arxian fleet's formation began to waver as more and more of their crew tuned in. They watched in horror as their supposedly unbeatable combat scenarios were reduced to speedrun categories. Their martial traditions turned into casual entertainment. "Final run," Emma announced. "This one's using strats developed by the Asian server communities. You guys ready to see something really cool?" What followed was beyond the aliens' comprehension. Emma combined split-second timing with exploits their designers had never imagined, turning their combat simulator into a ballet of impossible moves and perfect execution. The stream chat exploded with tips, suggestions, and countless POG emotes, but it was the silence from the Arxian fleet that told the real story. Finally, an Arxian transmission cut through the quiet. Their supreme commander appeared on screen, looking both bewildered and impressed. We cannot comprehend. Your children treat our most advanced military systems as entertainment. That's the thing you never understood about Earth," General Richards replied, standing behind Emma's chair. "Everything you saw as a weakness, our chaos, our creativity, our joy in the face of challenge. These are our greatest strengths." The Arxian commander was silent for a long moment. Then, "We are reclassifying Earth. You are not Class D. You are beyond standard parameters. We will withdraw." As the alien fleet began their retreat, Emma started one last speed run, just for fun. The war room erupted in cheers, but Dr. Parker's eyes were on the stars. "They'll tell others about us now," she said softly. "About the planet that turned war into a game and won." The easy target had just changed the galaxy's understanding of what it means to be human.